So, have you ever really, truly stopped to ask where our deepest moral beliefs come from? I mean, really. In this explainer, we are diving headfirst into one of the most provocative answers ever given from the one and only Friedrich Nietzsche. You know that feeling, right? That gut instinct about what's good and what's evil? We treat these concepts like they were carved in stone, like they're just cosmic truths. But what if they're not? What if they actually have a history, a secret, and frankly, a pretty shocking one? And this right here is Nietzsche's whole challenge to us. He basically says that we, the so-called knowers, have never bothered to examine the value of our own values. We just take them for granted. So he wants us to do something that feels almost unthinkable, to put our own morality under a microscope. Okay, so to really get what Nietzsche's talking about, we've got to go back in time. Way, way back. We need to see a world that played by a totally different set of moral rules. So, in the ancient world, Nietzsche says morality wasn't complicated. It was made up by the people in charge, the warriors, the nobles. For them, good was just, well, a description of themselves. Anything that made them, them. Power, pride, health, strength, that was good. And bad? It wasn't really the opposite of good. It was just an afterthought, you know? Kind of a dismissive term for everyone else. The common, the weak, the simple people they ruled over. And get this, Nietzsche points to the words themselves for proof. It's actually brilliant. In German, the word for bad, schlecht, is basically the same word as the one for plain or simple, schlicht. So bad didn't originally mean wicked or corrupt. It just meant common, non-noble. It was a social label, not some grand moral judgment. But then, everything started to change. A quiet revolution began. Something so subtle you could miss it. But Nietzsche called it the single most important event in human moral history. The whole script was about to be flipped on its head. So who's a mastermind behind this whole moral coup? Nietzsche points his finger squarely at what he calls the priestly caste. Think about it. They were smart, but they weren't physically powerful. And out of that powerlessness, he says, their hatred festered and grew into something incredibly intelligent and totally world-changing. The psychological engine driving this whole thing is a concept Nietzsche calls ressentiment. And we're not just talking about simple jealousy here. Oh no, this is a deep, simmering, vengeful kind of hatred that, because it can't fight back physically, turns inward and gets creative. It doesn't just envy the powerful, it finds a way to condemn them, creating a whole new moral universe just to make itself feel superior. Okay, so how did they pull it off? Nietzsche breaks it down into this kind of three-step recipe for a total moral takeover. Step 1, take everything the masters love about themselves, strength, pride, power, and redefine it as evil. Step 2, the powerless look at themselves in all their weakness and declare that to be good. And finally, step 3, they take the very symptoms of their weakness, pity, humility, being meek, and they elevate them into the highest virtues. Just like that, the entire moral dictionary was turned completely upside down. And here's the really wild part. This new morality didn't just hang on by a thread. It absolutely conquered. It went on to become the foundation for the entire Western world, shaping pretty much everything you and I believe today. So Nietzsche sees all of Western history as this epic 2,000-year spiritual war between two completely opposite moral codes. On one side, you have the master morality, which he symbolizes with ancient Rome, all about strength and pride. On the other, you have the slave morality, which he traces back to what he metaphorically calls Judea. And his jaw-dropping claim is that in this ultimate battle of values, Judea crushed Rome, absolutely crushed it. And this is where it gets really strange, a total paradox. Nietzsche says that from the trunk of this tree, a tree rooted in revenge and hatred, something totally new and unexpected was born, a new kind of love. The very idea of universal love, of compassion for the poor, the sick, the sinner, he says it grew directly out of the soil of the most profound hatred imaginable. And look, this isn't just some dusty old story. According to Nietzsche, this is our story, right here, right now. This so-called slave morality, which was picked up and spread across the globe by Christianity, became the default moral operating system for the entire Western world. Whether we know it or not, we are all its heirs. Okay, so where does all this leave us? This brings us to the final piece, and honestly, the most challenging part of Nietzsche's whole idea, his ultimate provocation. And Nietzsche, wow, he does not pull any punches.
He looked at this morality, with all its talk about pity and love, and he just found it fundamentally dishonest. He thought it was life-denying. To him, it felt like a system invented by the weak to make themselves feel powerful by dragging everyone else down into a swamp of guilt.
But, and this is super, super important, you've got to understand what he's not saying. Nietzsche isn't telling us to go back to being brutal aristocrats. His goal isn't to make evil cool again. His entire point is to force us to see that our whole moral framework, our concepts of good and evil, weren't handed down from on high. They were built, invented by human beings for very specific human reasons. And just realizing that, well, it opens up a terrifying and maybe an exhilarating possibility. And so he leaves us with this massive, world-shaking question. A question for you, for me, for all of us. If our deepest, most cherished values were invented once, born from a long history of power and hatred, does that mean we can become creators ourselves? Is it actually possible for us, for humanity, to invent new values, to finally move beyond good and evil?